Stavo dicendo, presentando appunto Alexander Damianisch, che è stato importante anche il suo coinvolgimento fin dall'inizio in questo fondo dedicato di supporto allo sviluppo della ricerca che il governo austriaco ha messo in campo oramai da più di 10 anni. Il programma si chiama PEC, magari se ci sarà tempo chiediamo qualcosa anche a questo proposito a Alexander. E fa parte del consiglio accademico della sua istituzione e forse vedo dal suo curriculum forse è appena decaduto in questa posizione. Ci presenterà un'importante iniziativa della Society for Artistic Research che ha avviato una serie di working group che si chiamano SAR-SIG, il suo dedicato al language-based artistic research e è coorganizzato insieme a Emma Cocker, Alexander Damianisch, naturalmente, Cordula Daus e Elena Serafin. Lo hanno anche ideato, oltre che organizzarlo, questo gruppo di lavoro, e fornisce contesti per riunirsi alle persone interessate attraverso lo scambio di ricerche che siano basate sul linguaggio. L'intento è quello di sostenere gli sviluppi nel campo delle pratiche espansive basate sul linguaggio, sollecitando tempi, spazi e attenzione per permettere la comprensione attraverso questo tipo di pratiche e anche la comprensione di questo tipo di pratiche in una maniera innovativa. Gli obiettivi principali di questo gruppo di lavoro di special interest, SIG è proprio special interest, è l'acronimo, fa riferimento all'acronimo, è di esplorare il linguaggio come parte della pratica della ricerca artistica piuttosto che come mero strumento di spiegazione e di resoconto. Espandere cioè l'idea di pratiche basate sul linguaggio per includere e per andare oltre lo scrivere, il leggere, il parlare e l'ascoltare, per creare contesti fisici e virtuali per i ricercatori artistici che si basano sul linguaggio per mostrare e condividere le loro pratiche. Un altro obiettivo è quello di identificare esempi di pratiche nel campo della ricerca artistica per stabilire quadri di riferimento che possano essere condivisi, oltre che condividere i risultati di progetti, la notizia di residenze che si concentrano sulla ricerca artistica basata appunto sul linguaggio verbale. Quindi esplorare modalità alternative di scrittura all'interno della ricerca artistica. Scusate, ho due persone che si stanno collegando. Dicevo, modalità alternative di scrittura all'interno della ricerca artistica al di là della scrittura accademica, così come considerare modalità performative di pubblicazione, questo è un punto anche molto interessante io trovo, e permettere connessioni e affinità tra i ricercatori che si occupano di questo. E direi che posso terminare con la mia presentazione, lasciare a questo punto spazio a Alexander con la sua appunto presentazione. Io intanto do il benvenuto a Riccardo D'Apelo e Elisa Poli e anche a Loredana Russo. Buonasera, grazie per esservi collegati.
Buonasera a tutti.
Please, Alexander, I give you the floor.
Thank you very much. That was a very kind introduction. I got some of the ideas that you did share with the colleagues attending the room and coming in. I just need to find my proper slides here, and then I'm about to start my presentation. Thank you very much for the invitation to share some of my thoughts based on my experience of the recent years with you, focused a little bit around, or very much so around the idea of language-based artistic research. I just started to share my slides. Can you see the slides, everybody? Is it okay?
See,
it seems so.
Yes,
yeah,
it's
wonderful.
Okay.
Yes.
I hope you can read it also. I wanted, and Leonella asked me to to focus a little bit on this notion and this idea, what was happening and is happening in the language-based artistic research group, this special interest group, which is an instrument of the Society for Artistic Research to support specific strands of interest in the field of artistic research. Just to let you know, everybody is free and is invited to provide ideas of special interest groups to the board, executive board of the Society for Artistic Research. It might be, for example, as well, something having a focus on Italian development in the presumably, hopefully soon developing field of PhDs from art academies of Italy, as Leonela just told me about, which is great news that this is acknowledged as an institutional power and opportunity, I have to say. And so it is free for everybody to be supported by this idea of the special interest group. Let me briefly introduce myself a little bit before starting my slides. Leonela, and somehow I got the ideas in her introduction, as I'm not fluent in Italian, but I get some of the content. I would like to add a little bit about the narrative of my practice, which is consequently actually about enabling, caring, and securing. And in the strand of the enabling, so to make things possible, I think there is a part of development of research and artistic practice content as well inside, because sometimes I support my dear colleagues for their projects also with my understanding of artistic and research practice. The caring part is about caring about the projects that actually are running at the university or in fields of interest to me, which is also connected somehow to this special interest group, as all of those projects are therefore supported by the organizational board, which is Emma Cocker, Cordula Daus, Lina Serafim, and myself, where we try to identify actions that bring the people together. And thirdly, also securing, it's about publication, it's about like curatorial work of exhibitions that I do also in favor of projects running and to kind of like cluster them in specific topics and bring them to the public understanding, because I do believe that the public, like everybody out there on the streets, it's very important that people understand what is happening in even this new field of artistic research. As a matter of fact, is already or still a big task to make everybody to bring everybody to a certain understanding and awareness for scientific research. But therefore, I think it's the same for artistic research, and maybe with a little bit of higher potential in the field of artistic research, as the arts is about communication, it's about resonance. So we are already there where people actually are interested in. But that's the third step in my practice of narrative. I have a background of a couple of years of, and that could be a next strand of activities in all the countries around the world to set up funding schemes for artistic research projects, so that money is given to the artistic researchers using that money to develop their research, may it be within the frame of a PhD development in the arts, or may it be beside that. I think that's a very important thing. For that reason, I initiated another group as I was when I was still in the board of the Society for Artistic Research, that was about funding artistic research, and this is constant, it's still ongoing. So this could be something also to reflect upon if that's an opportunity in this regard. Thirdly, I want to point out that regarding your future developments, we are here. I have two heads at the University of Applied Arts here in Vienna. The one is to support art and research, and the other one is heading the Institute Zentrum Fokus Forschung. And in the Center Research Focus, we are hosting, so to say, the university's artistic research PhD program we have in place already, together with the dear professors Ruth Anderwald and Leonard Grond. And all the students, there are about 25 students already enrolled in the program that are individually supervised by artistic professors at the university. So there is a big group, or rather big group, coming together, and we're constantly trying to bring them into reflective discussions, to exchange, etc. So whenever you have some interest to connect with our complementary competence in fine arts or applied arts, connecting to the fields as Rami is more, as I've understood, in the area of the music and performing arts may be interested. But nevertheless, there's a great interest of us to connect to other places, and your places are of such high level of interest that I would be dearly considered them in getting them in connection with our professors and the very program. So having said those three thoughts of interest, to make myself a little bit more understood to you, in my ambition, I would love to now dive into my slides. I will try to make it not too long so that we'll have enough time later to have some conversation as well in that time slot. Our time is till what time, Leonela, did we say?
Now is 20 minutes past 5, so you have half of an hour to speak.
Okay.
20 minutes to speak.
Okay, wonderful. So as it says here on the slide, this is about poetics of understanding and getting from transformation of understanding, which is always my line of thought that I try to bring to the people as an idea. It has been stopped. Yeah.
Yes, there is a white strip.
Just a moment. There, it's back. Is it?
Yes, but it's very big.
Yes, it has to be very big.
Okay.
So that you only get a part of it. So this is about poetics of understanding and getting from transformation of understanding to understanding of transformation and back inside a supporting context of resonant reflection. So as you see, the first part, the getting from transformation of understanding, I always frame that transformation of understanding as the artistic practice. Artistic practice transforms our understanding. So we are reacting to that experience in the form that we are kind of like later, after that experience, transformed somehow in our minds, in our understanding of the world. But putting the research also to the notion of arts, we're connected to the understanding of transformation. So there in the research part, we try to understand what's happening in this momentum of transformation. What is transforming our understanding, and we try to make it explicit. And this is something, this twofold action is actually for me the most ideal situation of an artistic research taking place. And I wonder how the language-based artistic research, so the language-based practice in the sense of poetics of understanding, how this could help to understand those processes better with the means of the material and methodologies of language-based arts. So that's my take. And the final line here is like, and back inside a supporting context of resonant reflection. This is actually the environment that I try to set up constantly to make this interaction happening. And yeah, that's my key interest. And this is something that will explain itself later. And you're now kind of really curious to know what it is about. So I'll try to keep the suspense high. The first part will be about the interest, mine and our interest, talking about us in the sense of the language-based artistic research SIG, the special interest group. I will talk about the organization of that practice of supporting the interest, about the aims of the interest, about the experience of qualities, of different qualities brought together by the special interest group, specific practices of sharing, and then the strands of action, actually what we did set up to make this thing happen together with the three dear colleagues, and then later also with all of the group. And then I will share two examples of my takes also with you if there's enough time, and later on fade out into something that you could call also keyboard music. Might be interesting for you guys here. So what are the potentials of language arts that might increasingly be integrated into the discourse of both research and artistic research for new understanding opportunities? So that's my interest. What's the potential of language arts? Because we constantly drive to have our associations with literature, with language-based practices, etc., in terms of being kind of confronted by other forms of artistic practice. And then suddenly we get some new understanding. This could refer to that, and this could refer to that. So this is my interest, so to say. But there are also the others that follow that have some interest. And this is a practice sharing that I will tell you about. And this is us, actually. So all the names that I just did share with you is just some 2 screenshots collided together is our interest. And there now I'm talking about the special interest group. Our interest is within the language-based artistic research group, the SAR SIG. SIG is the special interest group, and SAR is the Society for Artistic Research, is to support curiosity and openness, exploration beyond definition about how is language-based artistic research undertaken in and through different language-based practices. The focus on language within artistic research is considered from a broad and transforming perspective to include diverse fields such as visual arts, performance, film, theater, music, choreography, as well as literature. The intent is not to define or fix what language-based artistic research is, but rather reflect how it is practiced in its diversity. So those who feel attracted by this notion are connecting to that special interest group. Yeah? It's an invitation of open reflection. That's the interest, to bring those colleagues with their practices together on one board. It's conceived and co-organized by my dear colleague Emma Cocker from the UK, from University of Sheffield, I think. By myself, I've been introduced by Cordula Daus. She's a PhD candidate here in Vienna as well, and a freelancing practitioner in the field of writing and cultural studies. And Lena Seraphim, also a writer based in Finland. And the Society for Artistic Research Special Interest Group provides context for coming together via the exchange of language-based research. The intent is to support developments in the field of expanded language-based practices by inviting time, space, and attention for enabling understanding of and via these practices. So what we have here, like time, space, and attention, it's actually the thing that we try to moderate in that special interest group in organized way. And the special interest group is a development from shared research inquiries emergent within the frame of the Research Pavilion in Venice. So 2019, it has been, the idea came into place and has been then developed since in an organized way. And we'll share some material with you on that. That's another takeout. And the emergent aims of the SIG is to explore language as part of artistic practice, research practice, rather than as a tool of explication and accounting. So the language is the artistic research material in the practice and not just a reflective part of that. To expand the idea of language-based practices to include and to move beyond writing, reading, speaking, and listening. To create context, physical and virtual, for language-based artistic researchers to show and share practices. So this is kind of like the first parts are more like bring to knowledge about the other ideas of language in the field of artistic research. And now it's about like supportive work, like infrastructures of interest. So therefore to set up contexts where you can show and share the different practices as individual practitioners, to identify examples of practice within the field of artistic research, and to establish shared frames of references. So because in artistic research, it's always very important to build academic references, so to say, because usually the arts are either in the galleries or in the concert halls or in other areas. Of course, there's reflective part of that about the artistic practice, but artistic practice as research as such needs specific environments, and therefore we thought about language-based artistic research in this regard to provide also areas for references in that. And I will show you later how that is meant. And to share the findings, like the outcomes as well, from project and residencies that focus on language-based artistic research. That's the first part of the aims. And the second part is to explore alternative modes of writing within artistic research beyond academic writing, to consider performative modes of publications, to enable connections and affinities between researchers as well as between prospective research students and supervisors, to create a sense of solidarity and community between artistic researchers whose practice engages language in different ways, and to provide a platform for generating a critical creative understanding of language-based practices, which challenges and disrupts the privileging of the world within academia, whilst exploring the possibilities of language practice with both art and artistic research. And I think what I just presented to you could be either adopted in other areas as well. If you replace the notion of language-based artistic research inside those aims and those formulations, that provides you an opportunity to reflect upon if this manner of organization is also something that works within your area potentially as well. Because in that area, so it's like just subtracting a topical part and then replacing that with another take. But nevertheless, I think the instrument works rather well to implement something with the own interest that you have in mind, potentially in mind. And this could be academic aims, it could be methodological aims, it could be areas of practice in the field of the arts, may it be architecture, music, performance, film, or whatever. But in this regard, we decided to have a more transversal take, which is the language-based artistic research. So here the topic is the media, so to say, and you can replace this topic of interest with any other form as well. Just as I think it might be interesting to think what governmentally one could do with that idea of how we took the idea of the special interest group. So how do we experience language? There's affinity, affectivity. What you see here, it's just a lot of words that should bring to you and everybody else in the field about the openness, about the ideas that is there. And it's much more about like the creating turbulences, interactions, etc., by pointing out that we are not standing in an how you say, in a glacier, but in a flow. Yeah. So what is here? This about this reality approach. And another thing that is very important is the notion of how-ness. So if there's how-ness within practices of addressing, calling, so what you see here is like a verbal approach. It's the actions that are interesting for us in the sense of practices that we want to make, want to share with others. And the link I have here in the bottom line is actually the link to the this language-based artistic research group, where you can like get all the ideas from, to relate to and to learn about. There are up to 70 plus practices already described on the website there of a language-based artistic research. We did make a call to ask people to provide examples, and then they've responded to that, and it was a little bit, yeah. Emma Cocker did a great job in editing and putting them online as well. And we all tried to kind of like check it and check if it's qualified for our take or not. But then later on, a lot of those things appeared on the website, which is embedded on the research catalog of the Society for Artistic Research. There are 3 strands to initiate exchange, which is our organizational take. First, we see those gatherings for coming together, for sharing space and time, for exploring connections, relations, affinities, points of resonance and divergence. So it's about bringing people together. It's about then bring those people into collaborations or everybody else, platform as the platform to provide a context for presenting new collaborations, for sharing and reflecting on materials and findings. And then thirdly, talking about references, it's also a place to publish for future aspirations to publish material, and parallel references will also be collected. So if you have a source that others should also consider, this is also collected. We also made a newsletter system, so people could write their email address, etc., and then they will be invited for future actions to take place. Each year, the special interest groups are invited to be part of the Society for Artistic Research conference that is happening yearly around the world. This end of June, it'll happen in Weimar in Germany. And that this is actually also where the special interest groups are invited to present what did happen in the past. We had a couple of online meetings as well with a lot of colleagues presenting their collaborations, their takes, and this worked really well. I'll come to that later as well. So now the secret is unfolded about my weird drawings. Now you see the full scale, or let's call it the full skull of the image. And this leads me to my individual practice. But before that, before I start into that, are there any questions? If not, Leonella, do you have one?
Yes, I have some, of course, but perhaps somebody who is connected want to ask something to Alexander.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question. Sorry.
Please.
Hi, Alexander.
Hi.
So I directed for some years the Italian node of the PhD research of the Planetary Collegium, the one of Roy Ascott, that was one of the earliest PhD on.
Yes, I know about it. Yeah.
Art, yes, and I am really interested in this idea of poetic of understanding because. In our Italian node, we developed, yes, a practice-based research on art, but it was very related to theoretical studies and philosophy. And what we experience as a limit is to find the correct way to share the two cultures. That means. For example, I have a background in philosophy of techniques and media studies, but also in art, and it's not so easy to find people that is able to intertwine the two cultures. So for me, it's very clear that we have to work with philosophy, and so I'm just curious to know if you have some idea about that, because
definitely I do have some experience as well on that take. I think the question about like philosophers and artists coming together is quite often that philosophers are kind of like, let's put it bluntly, they are spoiled by the hard sciences, so to say, as they're also aiming to be seemingly precise, and I think it's very often there is, like in Thomas Mann's novel, or that's not the novel, it's in his story, Tod in Venedig, there is this composer, Aschenbach. And once he's described as this person, he's always having the fist and never can make this one. Yeah. So to loosen up. And I think it's about, that's why I think the second part of my practice being rephrased as a moderation, a practice of moderation, is like, loosen the things up to make like the associative powers come into play, yeah, and to get the people in a joyful, challenging way into interaction with each others. And not everybody can do, not everybody's possible to do that, because as I've said, some are spoiled by one of their contexts and others aren't, and that's my experience in this regard. And I think therefore may it be philosophy, but very much I think it's literature that is an opportunity as a common ground for people to meet, as having individual takes already been like in the past of their teenage years and even later of reading experiences, where they suddenly can reconnect somehow very, very, very directly to that. And of course, that needs to be on a high level. But I think that's, for me, my understanding of poetics of understanding, where and that's actually the example I have here. And let me tell you now about this. I think that's a good moment here. What you have here, this line on the skull, that's actually an example. Actually, this is a drawing I made from a stitching, or how you call it, from Dürer, where Dürer has this Hieronymus in the Klause, where this person is sitting there, and this line, it's actually it's not the crack of the skull, it's the joint area of the developing skull. And Rilke has a very short piece, and where he says, when he was a child, he was trained by the teacher to build a gramophone. And this gramophone he built, and he was so fascinated by building the gramophone, just out of the tube that they fold and a needle in there, and then they placed it, or actually first they recorded the sounds in the room, and later also they played the sounds in the room. And then Rilke does the turn towards, and then he thought about how does it sound if this crack is actually played, yeah? And then Rilke extends this into notion of the sense fields, yeah? It's about the artists to develop the areas of unknown areas of sense fields, yeah? Which is kind of very interesting take, actually, to have this idea in mind. And that's what I think is such a great example, to have this like 100-year-old text by Rilke, where he already starts to artistically think about this expansion of areas of knowledge or sense fields. And sense in German is like Sinn, and it's about knowledge, but it's also about sensuality. So those things come into play with this piece. That's why I love it so much, and why it is, for me, the ideal depiction of the idea of understanding, transformation of understanding, in a sense, what's happened there. And this based on the sensitivity of this writer. And to find other examples of literature, for example, that's my take. It's not the take of everybody in the language-based artistic research group, but it's my interest, as I'm coming from science of literature. I did my PhD on the silence of authors, where I kind of like can connect and also provide opportunities for others to crack open, again, to use the term and the metaphor of the crack here. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I found very interesting this idea of literature of understanding.
Mm-hmm.
For example, I really gave an high value. I don't know if you know Christoph Ransmayr and his
yes, a great example.
Yeah, so I am very affectionate to his work, and I also was in contact with him, and very interesting. Perfect.
Yeah. The Schrecken des Eises und der Finsternis. I think there are a couple of novels that he wrote, and also the Atlas of a frightened man, yeah, of an anxious man. I think there are great examples. As he's a trained journalist, he does actually the exploration of areas, of unknown areas. And there we're talking about the globe, yeah, the atlas that he's talking about. There we have a globe, and the brain and the skull is actually as well. It's a globe, actually, we're talking about. But let me come to that later as well. Leonela, shall I continue, or shall we take your questions now?
Yes, my questions were very general, Alexander, and I think that you have already exposed during your presentation, because I wanted to ask to Alexander how they come up to this idea to organize working group inside the SAR devoted to different themes or questions like that. But now, for me, they are not very important. You can go forward. Yeah. And at the end, I want above all ask to you for the future of this work you are doing in the working group. And yes. Please
love to share
go
this
on.
with you as well.
Yes.
I think the idea appeared somehow in the practice of individuals that have been brought together. There was also a colleague. Together with Alexander Arteaga, we organized somehow this research pavilion in Venice. And it was the take that was in place there was more on phenomenology. Yeah.
Mm.
So it was a
Alexander,
philosopher.
sorry, I interrupt you only
Please.
for a little break, and I explain also in Italian. Volevo solo dirvi, perché non tutti credo siate a conoscenza di questa iniziativa, che è stata un'importante iniziativa di una serie di istituzioni, di accademie straniere che erano poi guidate, se non sbaglio, dall'Accademia finlandese, perché hanno per alcuni anni affittato uno spazio che poi era Giudecca, in concomitanza con il periodo della Biennale Arte, dove queste accademie straniere hanno fatto un loro research pavilion, proprio come un padiglione della Biennale, che è stato un modo per incontrarsi e per vedere tutta una serie di progressi, diciamo, anche nazionali, però a casa nostra, a Venezia. Io sono di Venezia, quindi li conosco anche per questo, però la cosa che mi ha sempre stupito è stato così il basso coinvolgimento, diciamo, di noi italiani in questa iniziativa. And Alexander, the research pavilion now is stopped, I think. I don't see it anymore because the
Yeah, I think
Biennale
that
is
was,
now, yes.
yeah, that was an initiative that was there. It happened a couple of times, but now I think that this year there's nothing happening there. So I'm not familiar actually about the actions that do take place there.
They have taken a pause.
Yeah, they've taken
yes.
a pause. So this has been, the colleagues came together, and then it appeared that this is a common denominator of interest, especially of the 4 people that are in the topic as well. And later we sent out via the research catalog announcement service, and there are 10,000 plus people in this research, and everybody can do that. We called out to everybody who is interested to provide practices on their own to contribute to the idea of language-based statistic research, and 70 plus have been collected and brought onto display as potential references for the future, and granting visibility to the individual of those researchers as well. So that was a little bit the line, and let me briefly now reconnect to my practice. I'm just reading that. So I'm investigating the development of a poetics of understanding, navigating with the help of language-based artistic research, whereby literature plays a very important role. It's about transforming understanding and understanding transformation, and is literally connected as 2 recurrent processes via certain expandatory interaction and moderation. The subject of my personal curiosity-driven inquiry practice is trying to understand what is happening there, combining the careful and bold practice of artistic work, transform understanding, and of transformative action, and thorough academic discussion in return to that. So those are the 2 things. And actually the most interesting thing in that is like taking this notion put here in italics, transform understanding, and then the comma. I think that's the most important thing of that. What is happening in the conjunction of these 2 notions actually? When does the one thing happen to be the other thing? Yeah, and that's, I think, this momentum where we just talked about Rilke and Ransmayr. The first thing is more understood publicly as this poetic practice or artistic practice, and suddenly it shifts, and then it's the other thing, and suddenly it becomes reflective, and then we start to talk about an essay or an interview. We don't talk about it as a primary text, but as something about the practice. But I think these things could be connected again and being developed, as it's hidden inside the practice as well, what the reflective power is. And there are a great number of historical and current examples we have the opportunity to learn from about this interrelation, about their ways of transforming our understanding and reflecting this process. In particular, works of language art are essential for the exploration of this. Cases of language art that tend towards styles of explication provide a quality where execution and impact of change with immediate reflexive resonance are uniquely present compared with other forms of art and research. And that's the moment here, that's the comma I just pointed out. To find the pivotal moments of change is an opportunity for our liberation for a better understanding of what is at stake. So the pivotal moment is the comma in the connection of the two practices. So that's an example of my practice of interest. And what I have here is kind of a future development of my practice of interest. What you see here on this record is the crack of the skull as a line of sound on this record. And that was an invitation by Karl Salzmann for Kunsthaus Bregenz, where he invited colleagues to contribute their inscriptions on plain records. And I took it as a chance to continue the line that Rilke imagined on this record again. And we will see how in the next step this would actually really sound like. Yeah. So that's just an artistic further transformation of the thoughts that are in line or not in line here and of interest to me. And then I would like to just briefly, that's actually an image that we took, or a photo that we took at the research pavilion, and it should show you the idea of like moderation. I think that what I also just responded to, I forgot your name, but it is said on Zoom, Academia 2020.
Francesco Monico.
Francesco, what I just pointed out, it's about this moderation of interaction that is very interesting for me. And I do also understand it's a curatorial practice. And what's happening there, and therefore I do some exhibitions, which is the one is called Understanding Art and Research. It's a touring exhibition, scalable touring exhibition with different styles of media provided. Augmented app design, a digitally tool, it's a booklet, and it's also walls, rotating walls with information about research projects, constantly changing the reflection because all of the walls are mirrors of yourself in the research that you experience there yourself. So moderation, or the risk of being considerate. Yeah, so taking the risk and being considerate with it. That's the challenge and the sensitive take on that. I think that needs to be brought together. Yeah, I will not read that out to you, I think, because I just told you enough of that and you got the interest from myself to that. And what is happening here is actually also something that happened in the research language-based artistic research group. And that's how I interpret my practice there as well. What you have here, that is now a group, a collective that we did invite in an online Zoom to share with us their practice. And to let it definitely resonate with you, I just need to change now my document I share with you. So let's stop this here and just try to find the proper other slide, which is, where is it? Here. And as I found it, I will now share something with you, and you might just, as soon as
it's opacity for everyone.
Just listen.
Opacity as a right, as armor, as home. A tactic and aesthetics against entitlement, penetrability, reduction. And then there's a disappearing words.
I hear someone eating. Is this the AI eating?
So I'll interrupt it. I will not give you enough time to relax with this 10 minutes plus experience, because it was definitely, I think, one of my most favorite Zoom experiences I had in the last 2 years. That in that presentation of that collective, it was Anati, Marinos Koutsomichalis, Felix Savage, and Regina Dürek, about the uncommon ground, language as a hiding place, where we experienced their presentation, and suddenly, usually you have this moment after a presentation that people say thank you and now questions, and they stopped, and us in the moderation seats, we didn't start immediately who has something to say. It was kind of like, and it was really amazing. So this is kind of like, and you see all these practices. I just jump with you a little bit now on the website of the language-based autistic research group. So that's the main site of the language-based autistic research group. Here's the opportunity to get to the mailing list. Here is actually the content that I did already share with you on my slides. And down there, you see like this practice sharing. And here you see like this huge number of colleagues that did provide examples, always indicating with some keywords their individual examples. And here you see, for example, as I do not want to kind of like use others' ideas here, here's an example of my 2 practices I did share here on the slides. And a lot of others also did do that. So they could now relate to others' practices, etc. And what you already see here is like the gatherings. It's like these online meetings of the SIG gatherings about affinities and urgencies. What did happen online? I think this was this one that I just shared with you, this one example. And this was a meeting in the SAR conference. And this was actually the announcement and the start in Venice here, which is also documented online here. And this is about like collaborations of projects that actually did happen and did take place. And soon there will be here another next event, and this will happen end of June, I think 29th of June or something like that, or definitely the last days. It's not been yet out what day the special interest group will be present at the Society for Artistic Research. And soon there will be a new invitation for practice sharing, also sent out via the newsletter service to provide new materials, etc., to contribute to that. And we hopefully will have in Weimar physical interactions of people coming to Weimar, or soon, well, maybe something like this also happening in Vienna. So that's about it. And just briefly, let me check if I have some more very important information on my slides or not. No, I think that was very much it. So we can keep it now on that form, and I'm open to your questions and whatever you have in mind. Thank you very much.
So thank you very much. I am so happy that you came here to tell us this experience, because it is important for me that Rami will help to open and really to disseminate such experience also outside our little field, not little, but very limited field of music. And the format is very interesting for me. Oh, sorry, I have my dog.
Lovely. Fits to my sound performance I just shared.
Language-based contribution to
beyond language.
Yes, also because it has been an opportunity to share with our guest in Rami the connection with the research catalog, because you put on the research catalog all the dissemination of your work in the working group, and you usually use in a very dynamic way this platform that is really almost unknown in Italy, and is an open tool to share, to come in contact, to see also the work and the progress of other people. Because thank you so for sharing with us also your personal attitude. And what is important, I think, was the invitation that you show, because it's so open, this special interest group, because the theme really could bring us to new land of how to say, you break out really the limit of the discipline as we know since now. We are, as Francesco before said, in the field of arts, of visual arts, but if I have to speak about music, we are always around the reflection where musicology stops and begin artistic research or practice-based research, and artistic research include musicology as a support and a tool and so on. But also the concept of musicology is so open. For example, this aspect with comparison with literature, it was a very old field of the musicology that I think it could be stimulated, but your suggestion now, and so I come to the question. You speak about a huge number of cooperation, 70 or plus than 70 who became in contact with your working group. And with the music or performing arts, how many are they? Have you an idea? Or?
Oh, this is really difficult. No, I can't tell you, but I do have the understanding that performing arts and talking about performance and also cultures of choreographic or dancing, they're with the somatic bodily experiences in mind, they are very attracted by the field to find terms, actually terminology, to exchange about their reflective practices. So they love to connect to that. So there are a number of people with that included in the language-based artistic research group. Actually, that's what also was the background of that. One of the initial activities happening in the field, let me just get you one thing, was so where Emma Cocker, for example, and also myself, we came together, was also supported by Mariella Greil, and she's a dancer, and she did her PhD in the UK. And there was, for example, the choreographic figures, where you have also notation systems. So I think for the area of music, I think there are certain parts, like talking about language-based artistic research, where does a notation system stop and where does it start, for example, where the music also could connect to that, to that idea of language.
Yes, because the approach is very, very wide. It can bring us very far. And perhaps there is somebody in the public who wants to ask something.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to take time to other people. If not, I have. Oh, okay.
Leonella, just give me 1 second, because I don't know if you're able to hear me.
Yes, I do.
I'm in an open space. Good afternoon. So thank you, for instance, Leonella, for including me. I'm not yet part of the RAMI, but I hope to become very soon part of it. Alexander, thank you very much for the extremely precise presentation that opened up in my mind a lot of questions that I hope to talk about even later, because you pointed out the time as an important element. Sometimes we need to digest when it comes to complex information, but I'm now in charge of the research for an Academy of Fine Art in Milan. And my background is an architectural historian. So for me, the language was a very clear item, as well as, the relation with the archives. And here it comes to an interesting question from my side, which is the fact that we need to respect somehow certain rules to make clear for an academic audience our statement. But from the other side, it is necessary, as you said at the beginning of your presentation, to make it clear for a more large audience. So my question is, could you give us, sorry to ask like that, with some example on the sense in which they are able to match? You show some of them, but I'm interested in, the large scheme you have created, as well as because I'm very happy to meet now someone from the research pavilion in Venice. I remember how it was called, the cemetery archipelagos, probably. And I've studied for many years cemeteries, so I loved that pavilion. It was brilliant, and I went there. It was, in the rush of Venice. I hadn't time to explore it more, but it was really, really a very good project. So congratulations for it. And thank you again for the very thoughtful
No, I think there were 3 levels are interesting in what you just said. The first thing is like, use language not as an opponent, but as an opportunity to reflect together about something. So we, for example, in the PhD in Arts program, we do not demand colleagues to write the thesis, but we demand the colleagues to contribute a reflective documentation without limiting it to the notion of language. Of course, it is like, in my understanding, language is also an opportunity to free oneself for other medium reflection. So it is something, when I write, that's very much of my practice, where I come from, talking about the PEAK program. If I do make clear my ideas in a proposal, for example, and I use words, it's much easier for others to understand it than to use images, because images always need to either be intuitively grasped or have a style of reading that one needs to learn in advance. Yeah? So that's the first thing, where I think language isn't a threat, but it's an opportunity. In terms of artistic practice, again, there might be a medium quality in language, of course, and there might be a complementary quality in other areas of artistic practice, using other media, of course. Secondly, I think what the research pavilion, and somehow also all that SIG special interest group endeavor is, it's more about dissemination. It's about the core area where you can relate to other colleagues in the very field you want to actually develop on, and you want to kind of like be challenged and reflectively challenge also others. So that's a second take, and that's actually where we are in. The third thing about public awareness of the idea of artistic research in that sense, it's not so much covered in the special interest, because the special interest group is more a focused thing. But what I have in mind in my third take, what I said about enable, care, and secure, the secure thing is also about the transfer to the public. And there I have this exhibition I just referred to, this understanding art and research. And particularly, I use the term art and research because this is something everybody on the street could understand. Yeah, it's not artistic research. It's not through the arts, by the arts, via the arts, about the arts. It's like art and research. And then people are kind of like connecting to that, and very much also about the notion of understanding. It's a understanding is like knowledge, but it's also empathy. Yeah. And that's why I do like this notion of understanding very much so. So it's about contributing insightful empathy, behavior towards practices, but also towards our environment, SDGs, climate change, aging society, etc. Also in these reasons, I think the power of the artists could be something of use for the society as such. And that's how we take, or how I take here at the University of Applied Arts, the meaning of applied arts actually. Yeah. And you having a background in architecture, I think the architecture colleagues are very, very blessed, because they have a very organized, clearly structured project planning attitude towards something, towards a couple of things. So you have a clever institution having you appointed to that position.
If I have well understood on the instruction on the site of SAR, it's necessary to be a member of the SAR, to be to take part to your work, or not? The institution, your institution, has to be a member or not?
There are a couple of memberships that are possible. One thing is like institutional. So let's start from a small thing. It's individual members. You have to pay 50 euros a year, and then you're an individual member. But I'm not sure. I think you even could use the research catalog.
Freely, yes. Freely,
yeah, without
yes.
being a member to the
Yes.
Society for Artistic Research. And then that's the one thing, or the two opportunities how to be connected and also relating to others. The second thing is the institutional membership. There, your institution, I do not know about the current fee, but then your institution has more rights in election modes, etc. And then there is another thing, which is, and your institution is always also empowered to provide memberships for others. If you're connected to an institution that is member, then you, and as a affiliate person, have other rights than individual members. And or you don't individually have to pay for that. And then thirdly, there is a portal partner. And Rami could, for example, ask for a portal solution. And the portal solution is like a journal. Yeah, it's like an environment where you can individually set up a review process, a publishing process, etc. Like, for example, the Journal for Artistic Research that's actually a portal use of the research catalog, or other opportunities are used already in portal solutions. So those are the different strands.
Thank you very much, and I hope to see you again in another occasion in Rami. Or
yes, it's a great pleasure. And Phil, whenever you feel individually, one of you or as Rami, just connect to me, write me your interest. I'm happy to support the idea of artistic research in all settings needed. Also traveling to your place or whatever, because I'm really very much, I'm burning for the idea of art and research and the development of understanding and the transformative powers. And also, if you want me to relate to colleagues, for example, to identify potential colleagues on the level of a PhD or project-related colleagues or institutional-related colleagues, I'm also happy there to be. Also regarding to the politicians, if you need some governmental support with experience, because we had situation like that in Austria as well. And this was a very good development for the field of artistic research, how it took in Austria. I'm there to support you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.